You're listening to the Ballet Piano Podcast, lifting the lid on dance accompaniment.
Hello listeners and welcome back to the Ballet Piano Podcast. I'm Chris Hobson and as always in the room with me is Matt Gregory.
Hello.
Kiko Hobson.
Hi.
And hashtag David Yao of Instagram.
Hello.
Hello David. So in today's episode we're going to be discussing Tendu. So Tendu comes directly after the plie exercise usually, doesn't it, in the ballet class?
Yes.
Can you tell us what is a Tendu?
Okay. As we said in the last episode, all the terms are in French. So tendu or étendre is the verb, means to stretch. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to lengthen the muscles in an extended position. So you're standing on one leg and you're extending the other leg in a different direction away from your body. So that could be in the front of you, to the side or to the back. And generally tendus are on the floor. So you have the tip of your toe of your extended foot on the floor. And there are many ways to do this. And we use the music in a lot of different ways in terms of the actual speed with which we do the actual movement of tendu to wake up the muscles in a different way or to actually develop the muscles in a different way when we're doing those tendus. So when we're doing this, we might start, if we're straight away after pliés, you might do a slow tendu first, and then the next exercise might be a quicker tendu. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to wake up the muscles and teach those muscles to move in a certain way, in a certain direction, first of all slowly, as you would do in any kind of rehearsed movement. And then you're going to try and speed that movement up so you can use it in a different way when you get off the bar in the centre.
Okay, that's a lot of information, but it's so valid. There's some of it that I sort of think I knew, but I've realised I didn't know it when I listened to you talking about it. It's funny how much of it you take for granted sometimes, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So let's focus first on, let's say, the slow tendus. How would you set that? And I know there's various different ways and musical styles, but it's just, let's say a go-to or one of your greatest hits of a slow tendu.
I would tend to sort of use a steady 2/4, or on some occasions a 3/4, but very rarely these days. Yeah. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to actually do two things at once. You're trying to stand on the supporting leg and use what we call opposing forces. So you're trying to stand and push your feet into your standing leg into the floor whilst you're lengthening your muscles. So you're also thinking about pushing your head towards the ceiling. So you've got a two-way movement going on into the floor and up to the ceiling. At the same time that you're doing that, you're trying to then move your free gesture leg in a different direction. So let's say if we start in fifth position, so you're crossing your, let's say you're from the bar, your outside leg away from the bar in front of your standing leg, and you're going to stretch your leg devant. That means into the front. So we're going to go 1 and 2. So you're taking 2 counts from a closed fifth position to extend fully into that tendu devant position. Mm-hmm. So your leg is right in front of your hip in the center of your body. And then you're going to close that extended leg back to where it came from, 3 and 4. Now, you might repeat that once again because often, like when you're practicing piano, you want to use repetition to help train the muscles. So we might go 5 and 6 and 7. And this time when we close into fifth position, we might bend the knees into a plie, which we talked about last episode, 8. And we might do that en croix. En croix means in the shape of a cross. So that might mean I do the exercise of that sequence to the front, to the side, to the back, and back to the side.
So you can hear then, for the way that David set that, it's a slow 4 or a slow 2, depending on how you're going to approach it. But there's a lot of scope to do whatever you want to do with that, isn't there, musically? You could do something that's, almost like a jazz standard or a slow MT standard with a bit of a swing to it, or you could go straight, you could go any sort of way with that, couldn't you? What do you, when you were setting that, had you already got something in your head that you were thinking would work musically?
A tango would work really well.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're stretching the music out and you're...
Bless you!
You're using the quality of the tango to actually move your muscles in a particularly way, in a stretched, lengthened way. And that really helps the dancer to understand how to do that slow tendu.
Okay. I'm just thinking, I don't know, maybe I would have played a tango for that. Maybe I was too focused on actually just listening to the way that you were setting it, and I'd probably approach it differently in a studio. I'm not sure.
think tendus are a bit of a minefield.
Yeah.
There's so much you can play for tendus. I played the slow bit of a Shardash.
Yes. Yeah, that'd be really
Yeah.
good.
Or something adagio into
Yes.
with a slight accent, and that's up to me to put that in. So it still has a bit. It's not just really legato. There's a bit more structure to it.
Yeah, because slow tendus are almost like a continuation musically of the first exercise of a warm-up, aren't they? So it's nothing that's too jarring. It's nothing that's too in your face. It's not fortissimo. It's
smooth.
It's smooth. It's legato.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's a good word.
And it also has to be slightly indulgent, so the dancers can feel every metatarsal muscle and every muscle in the leg and foot going up to the hip. So when I'm playing a slow tendu, I'm also encouraging them to indulge in the movement with the music.
Yeah.
Hence, something like the slow part of a Shardash, it's got an energy, hasn't it? You know, it's really slow, but there's a bit of an accent, but it's still sort of, you know, it's luxurious.
And that's really helpful to the dancer to hear that, because it encourages them to do exactly that.
Yeah.
I really like my jazz standards at the moment. I don't know why. It's just where I'm at musically at the moment. I really like, something really slow but indulgent, like Lover Man, or a really nice indulgent, with all the sharpened fifths and flattened ninths for summertime.
Yeah.
Or, there's a lot of Gershwins that would work well for the slow tendus as well. It's just, that's where I seem to be at the moment. And I don't know, like when we've talked about it previously with David, he said it can work for being indulgent because students and dancers know that these songs have got lyrics to them, so possibly subconsciously you're using those lyrics in your head and you're singing them along with them, so that's possibly going to make you just to be more indulgent because you're associating not just the music but the lyrics as well. And that's where I'm at the moment, and I'm really enjoying all of my indulgence
For you.
for a slow time. Yeah, it's all about me.
Because the slow tendu is slow, you want the dancers to really indulge.
Yes.
And so I help them with the music, and those things like jazz standards, they've got all those slushy chords.
Yeah, I love a
It
good
makes
slushy
the
chord.
dancers, it just takes them somewhere else while they're really working their legs and feet.
Absolutely.
And I do a lot of those jazzy things as well.
What do you like for slow tendus, Kiko?
I don't know, but I just remembered last few months I'm getting 3-4 for slow tendu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a trendy thing at the moment, but I just started to feel like I'm playing 3-4 awful a lot nowadays. I don't know why.
I think it's those first three exercises, pliés and tendus, and then a little bit, the warm-up exercise that precedes all of those. They're kind of like you need more time in the music to actually feel those muscles, to wake those muscles up. And the longer you have, like on a 3-4, within the actual phrase of music, the better it is, because it gives you a chance to actually feel every part of your body. Because when we talk about tendus, we're not just talking about the legs that you can see that are moving. You're actually stretching your whole body. So a tendu movement is actually a stretching of your whole body, and not just what you can actually physically see.
I'd never thought about that. I just thought it was about what I could see.
You're still your coffee hasn't kicked.
Yeah. The second espresso hasn't kicked in then. So then, after slow tendu, we're going to move over slightly into quicker tendus.
Yes, so you might use something that's some kind of music that's more accented, like a polonaise or a mazurka or something like that, just to give a little bit of a kick, a little bit of interest that's beyond a normal regular rhythm.
Okay.
And what they felt in the slow tendu, you now want them to feel in the quicker tendu.
Exactly. So you're asking them to do the same kind of movement, but you're asking them to move their legs and their whole body in a very more precise, sharper way, because you're building up the speed within the actual muscles to move quickly for later on.
Yeah.
So musically, for slightly quick, I know you've discussed there or briefly mentioned, these polonaise or mazurkas, but you can end up with like quicker tangos or, almost like a slow Scottish reels or, the Ascot Gavotte from My Fair Lady or something like that. These, again, it's a minefield, isn't it? Like you were saying earlier, almost more so or equally as with the slow tendu.
Well, marches work well.
Wonderful. Yes,
marches,
absolutely.
we all play marches, don't we?
But this exercise, the first exercise that accent matters.
Yes, that's true.
Isn't it?
Describing
So
it,
you need to know where you should be putting the accent within the music.
And you can get that a lot from the way that the teacher marks it as well, can't you? Know, is it out
The
on the
fast stage
hand? Is
count.
it out on
Yeah.
the one?
Yeah.
Where is it? And then you've got a real structure then to work out what repertoire you're going to choose.
So for the teacher who's actually setting the exercise, it's so important to use your voice to help not just the dancers, but the pianist who's going to help you choose the music for that particular exercise that you want in the kind of, shall we say, flavour that you want it.
Yeah.
Because as pianists, what we need to know the time signature, we need to know the tempo, and then we need to know any accents, isn't it? And it's possibly in that order. So you hear it's a 4/4, so you go, okay, 4/4 repertoire in your head or in your book or however you do it.
Your Rolodex of repertoire in 4/4.
Yeah, you're going through and you're like, okay, that's not going to work because it's too fast or too slow. It's not going to survive that tempo. And then it's the accents, isn't it? And that's almost more, or it's equally as important because you're trying to help the dancers do the accents in the right places. And, I'm sure, I don't know if anybody else has experienced this. I hope you have. I've played for stuff where I've not quite understood what the accent is because I don't know, maybe the caffeine hasn't kicked in, or when I was younger and I was more inexperienced. And then the teacher is getting annoyed with the students because they're not on the accent. And then I'm sort of thinking, okay, that's sort of my fault.
Because you've thrown them under
because
a
I've
bus.
thrown them under the bus by not giving it, or as obviously as maybe I could have done. So I think those 3 checkpoints for teachers to know what we need as musicians, and that applies to any exercise, not just tendus, is important. I think it's the building blocks of how we would then choose what we're going to play for a teacher.
Just listening to you is absolutely fascinating because as dancers we forget. You talk about Rolodex, Brad. The amount of how many tunes do you need to know to actually play a class?
Gosh,
that's a lot, isn't it? Really,
I don't know.
I think I've got a lot.
Yeah.
And then I do class and you're playing, and I'm like, whoa, he's got so much more than me.
Yeah, but I've been doing it for longer than you.
Only a little bit.
It's not a competition who's got the biggest.
I know it's not.
But this is what I find fascinating is that you are an absolute encyclopedia of the music that we're listening to.
Well, I've started cheating a little bit now, so I'll take my iPad in with me.
Technology, yes.
I'll bring the iPad in and I've got stuff saved in there that I know that I want to try in ballet class.
Yes.
Because I'm not great at memorising tunes.
Yeah.
So some of it comes down to muscle memory more than mental memory for me. And then when I've done them a few times, they're in the fingers there.
Yeah.
Right.
Which actually that works. Going back to what we were saying about losing your dexterity in your fingers. Sometimes when I come back from a break, I'll start playing, the first section of a tune, and then I'll start panicking because I think I don't know what the middle section is. And I know that my fingers are going to do it. But I go into this little bit of a panic mode because I don't want to sound like I don't know my job. And then I'll completely confuse myself by overthinking it. And then I'll screw it up because I'm trying to overthink it. I think if I only had the confidence just to trust that my fingers would know where they were going, it would be okay.
I mean, I've got all sorts of little tips and tricks and clever little things to do to make it look like my repertoire is bigger. Play things in different keys.
Yes.
Right.
Different time signatures.
Improvise your B signatures, different time signatures, different feels.
That's really good.
And so people hear that tune and they think, "Oh, what is that?" Because it's on it. It might be. I might be playing it in a Latin way, or something like that. And it's things like that, and you learn that as you go.
Yeah.
And I learned that
That's
from
a good
listening
tip.
to other pianists as well and seeing what they do.
Right.
I actually heard this was on TV. It was Beethoven's Für Elise, but in 2, and now I play it in 2.
Oh wow.
Like a
with
rag or something?
Like a Latin feel. And that works for a little jump.
Brilliant.
Chris, you're playing next class, aren't you?
Do you know what? I can't remember if it was an Bilk recording I listened to years ago, 10 plus years ago, and it was for release, started off in its usual 3/4, and then 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And I was like, okay, and that got chucked in for a little bit. Well, then it's the sources of repertoire, isn't it? So where do you pick your repertoire from? It's from stuff you already know, from things you hear on the radio in the car or on your headphones while you're walking through town.
I think ultimately my repertoire is music that I just love to listen to and love to play.
Yeah.
Which is musical theatre. Well, lots of classical as well, but like film music. I love film music. So I play lots of that.
Do you remember, David? Was it last year when we were doing? I can't remember what exercise it was for. Lawrence of Arabia, and you asked the students what was it, and there was this one kid in there. He was only like 16, 17, who had the most gigantic knowledge of Lawrence of Arabia.
We stood there with our mouths open, didn't we? We were like, oh my goodness.
And he was like, it was composed by this person. I was like, right, zooming in on the corner of my iPad. Yes, it was. I don't know, I was How's he got that? I'll ask him next week.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Amazing.
And sometimes
Intelligent
you
boy.
start to feel the generation gap with
Yes.
the tune that you know as well.
yes, yes.
That you
When
feel.
we were in Japan last year, was it last year?
Oh yeah, so we just kind of guessed it one ballet class in a local ballet school in Tokyo, and we played. I don't know, Chris or I. One of us played one of the Ghibli music that I grew up with, expecting everybody Japanese should know. And the teacher was like, "Do you not know this music?" And all the girls, they are like probably 10, 11 years old. They were like, "No."
It was bad, wasn't it?
And we were like in shock because we
Yeah.
thought every single Japanese student should know this tune.
And we were saying what we think is cool that we're going to play in ballet class.
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to get a reaction. You know, Tumbleweed gets nothing.
Blank
No.
faces.
And
Well,
it's
I
showing
used-
us, our age.
I used to say that I was going to stop playing ballet class when people didn't know the music I was playing. That used to be the time to retire. And
Well, it's so time to retire then.
I've changed, considering we've now got this new flat that we've bought, I've now changed the rule, which is when the teachers don't know the music I'm playing, then I'm going to
More
retire.
realistic, isn't it?
But hopefully I've got another 10 years or so left. I need to update the repertoire, actually. When you're thinking of music, Dave, when you're thinking of exercises, if you've got a tune in your head,
Yes.
yeah,
I have usually, I guess it depends on the kind of person that you are. But I always, when I was growing up, I never associated music by itself. It was always two dance things I'd
Yeah.
seen. So when I'm actually setting an exercise, I have that relationship with music. It's to do with dancing. It's never by itself.
yeah.
So we're just talking about tripping down memory lane. Whenever you start playing Mr. Ben or something like that, that gets me.
Yes.
You've got me then once you start playing.
Oh, what's the other one? Thunderbirds for Grand
Oh,
Battle.
absolutely fantastic. Love it all.
But there's only me and you who know that.
I
Everybody
know.
else is like, why are these two idiots laughing?
I know, but we're smiling like Cheshire cats from across the room, aren't we?
One of the things I might do for a Tendu is from one bar side to the other is completely change the feel.
Yeah.
I love
If the
that.
teacher hasn't said, if they haven't sung particularly what they want, I might start off with something quite swingy,
Yeah.
hold that tempo, and then turn on a dime second side and play something tango-y or something Latin
Yes.
with the same
Yeah.
tempo, and watch what the kids do.
And watch them look at you and go, he knows it. It works. This is amazing. He's so clever.
It keeps them listening,
It
and
does.
it just
It does.
revitalizes the second side of the bar.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
And even if you play the same music but with a different feel as well, that also works. If you're running out of
Yeah.
repertoire or you're not quite with it at that point, it's
Yeah.
good. So anyway, I think we should bring it to a close there. It's more or less time to finish. We really do hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and be sure to join us next time where we're going to be discussing glisses and jetés. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe via your podcast provider to ensure that you never miss an episode. And if you're social media inclined, then you can connect with us on Facebook or Instagram at Ballet Piano Podcast. So until next time, it's goodbye from me.
Bye from me.
Bye bye.
Bye.